Hey, you. Thanks for stopping
Hey.
by. Today's a very special occasion as not only am I doing an interview, something that doesn't happen too often, but we also have our biggest guest yet here to talk about a number of interesting, exciting things, such as the latest and upcoming release of the Joe Goldberg novels known as You, which went on to inspire the hit Netflix show, uh, which was originally on Lifetime, later bought by Netflix. In addition to another novel that was picked up for a TV series called Providence, along with some of her other latest projects, one of which being an Amazon original called The Bad Friend, along with Room 24, a contribution to an anthology of Stephen King's The Stand. And that's just a few of the things we'll be diving into today. But most importantly, I want people to be familiarized with this person, to know her like they know her work, and to learn everything that embodies her and what she's done in her life. So hopefully by the end of this, you learn a lot before there's too much to start from the beginning, because I have no doubt in my mind that if you haven't touched on who she is yet, that her name will come up again in the future due to her creative talents and inventive storytelling. And I don't want you to be lost when that happens, viewers. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to my channel, Caroline Kepnes.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Garrett.
It's a pleasure to have you. This is my fifth interview, and one of the main things we're here to talk about is the fifth installment of your most popular work coming out just after the fifth season of the show. And when I got the confirmation from you that this would be happening, I was in the middle of working on my season five fan write for YouTube. And the original book, not too long ago, celebrated its 10th anniversary on September 30th, 2024. And 30 is a factor of five. I'm starting to believe in the magic of numbers. Thank you for being here.
I like that. I believe in the magic numbers too. So yeah, five is a good one. Five is the number of the day for sure. I like that.
I want to start out by giving everyone a rundown of who you are and your accomplishments and what you've been up to since your breakthrough, you could say. So it's my understanding that you grew up in Massachusetts, went to Brown, majoring in American civilization, and from there pursued journalism in numerous facets, from writing for magazines such as Tiger Beat, reporting for Entertainment Weekly, and even entering the TV scene as a writer on Seventh Heaven and The Secret Life of American Teenager, uh, before eventually coming out with You, which was your debut novel, and the rest is history. Is that correct? Hope I'm not missing anything too significant.
No, that's impressive. That's the big picture. Yes.
When I first heard the name Tiger Beat, I was like, that sounds familiar. I've heard it before. And then it clicked. It was parodized as Pop Tiger magazine in a few Nickelodeon shows, the
Yeah.
main one being the boy band Big Time Rush, which Tiger Beat wound up actually featuring in real life. Uh, and speaking of which, Tiger Beat was like your first writing gig, which was also about
Yeah.
a boy band.
Yeah. I mean, honest, back then there was an ad in the New York Times that was like, "Do you know about boy bands?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." And it was what I mean, in some ways, it was like living in a sitcom at times, like where you get to work, and on the one hand, in a cubicle, like I've worked with great people, I'm still friends with it to this day. And then
hmm
there's like a band coming in at 10 in the morning to serenade you from Germany. Like,
hmm
yep. And
And,
so much alliteration. Yes. So
and
much
and
alliteration.
since that breakthrough with the widely received TV series that you were a consulting producer for and writer, you've come out with, of course, sequels to that book, and another book of yours, which released the same year the show premiered, was also picked up for a show on Peacock by the same writers and showrunners. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when you get with the right people, things just click. And that's all about the right people. And it didn't work out with Providence, but I'm hopeful about something in the future. And they'd written a beautiful script. And it's the nature of this business. Sometimes it just isn't a go. But I'm so happy, like, still that, it's still possible. And clearly they know how to make good TV. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, we're definitely going to revisit that later because that's kind of like news. Like, I don't think anything has been said about it. Um, when First question, when reading a few reviews of some of your work, I stumbled upon the perfect description of your specialty. Two words, inventive storytelling. And I use these words in the introduction. You've clearly written things that are not only prone to peak recognition and not only have high enough demand to be ordered for production and other forms of media, but they also even want you on set in some capacity due to the level of creativity that you're at, which tells me that they don't just want your material, they want your mind because it's clearly genius and unique in so many ways. Where does your passion for writing and storytelling come from, and why do you think you tell stories the way you do?
I think it's something in my DNA that as a small child, it was just something I loved off the bat when I was even by myself playing with toys. That's where it started, like literally like in the grass with my Glamour Gals and my brother's G.I. Joe dolls that were like the same size. So all kinds of terrible things going on in the grass in the dollhouse. And then when stories would get more elaborate and I like learned to write, it was like just the first thing I wanted to do. And I was like an obsessive little diary keeper. So yeah, I have some like my diaries are so funny because it's all there, like the tone, the like frustration and the passion. And yeah, I'm simply also I'm like I'm lucky that I'm one of those addict writers where like I'm happier when I'm doing it. I feel better, I do better when I'm immersed in some other world. I've always felt like I like to have my foot lodged in another world that I'm building.
The more I hear you talk, the more I understand why I want this interview so badly. Like you described my childhood. I was basically, I basically had Andy's room going on, like a bunch of toys, telling these endless stories.
Yep.
Uh, didn't even want to put the toys away in a bin because I want to be able to sit right back down and pick up right where I left off and keep writing in my mind. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, it's definitely like DNA plus like personality.
Yes, and I think it's a great thing to discover as you get older and kind of like grow as a writer, as a person that you know, like for me, like I always go back to that place of like, oh, the goal here is to be in flow and lost in this world, and then to kind of look up and be like, oh, it's dark out, or oh, 2 hours have gone by. And then there's all the work of like, okay, this doesn't work. How do I fix this? But that at the kernel of it is that love of being like lost in something that is new and that you're inventing as you go along. I love that feeling.
Precisely. And with the success of your first book, second question, to the point where it became a show, that was an accomplishment in more than one way because you could also say continue your career in television as a consulting producer. What was that like? What does it consist of? And what other ways do you contribute to the show? How far does your involvement go?
It's a dream come true. And I mean, like when you write something, you don't expect anyone's going to necessarily read it, like it, get it. And so I had had this great experience with readers from the get-go who are just very passionate. And then to have the showrunners come on board as like as readers who get it and are passionate was a wonderful experience. And from the ground up, I loved being involved in everything and weighing in. And then working with, I feel like people who just really know what they're doing and have great instincts and care so much about the material and moving it to a new, dimension because that kind of storytelling in TV, is just so different. So it was
Hmm.
exciting to like sort of be in the car but not in the front seat because when I conceive of something like when I'm writing fiction, I was fully just immersed in Joe's point of view and
Hmm.
thinking of it like not even necessarily visually because for me like the books are just about being in this head and
Hmm.
seeing if I can get you in there and get you to be with him and like being with him, even if you don't like him per se. And TV is so different. So it was very exciting to see them build that world out and down to things like I remember thinking, oh, like if I was doing this, it would just be like you're in his head all the time. And they broaden that world in a way that I think is really spectacular. And so as it went along, like I think with a lot of things, I backed off a bit because also I was writing more U-books and I didn't want to be like in two worlds at once.
Hmm.
And when that train is running and the people like in charge of it are doing so great, I'm like, yeah, go do it. And that's something I learned, I feel like, from also working in television.
Yeah. One thing I'm doing with my writing is so I'm writing a comic. It's a mystery action adventure kind of thing.
Yes.
And the what I'm doing is when I write the dialogue or whatever, the manuscript, I also write it in a television script style so that if it gets picked up and adapted for TV, it can be easily adapted into a script. So that way there's not some like reformatting needed to make it go from book to television for a movie.
Yeah, and I think you learn a lot. Like I'm in a broader sense, I feel like every form of writing I've done contributes to how I write. And
Hmm.
so I know what you mean by that a lot. Like I feel like I draw on the journalism and the screenwriting and the reading and loving books too. So it's great when when you're creating something, it can help you know the material better and know what you're doing with it too. If you're like, wait a minute,
Hmm.
like what if I'm in this, this realm?
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. What has it been like working with Sarah Gamble? What do you like about her, and what do you most look forward to about working closely with her So I asked a question based off of you just said it didn't work out with Providence. I was going to ask what working closely with her as she brings another work of yours to life on screen.
I mean, she just has a genius of her own, like of storytelling. We have
Yeah,
a sick, dark sense of humor. I like being in a room with her in the simplest way, which is like the highest compliment, you know? Like, and I feel like another one, like she just gets it, and she's part poet, very large part poet, and that's something I really love about her, that she's so sensitive, and yet at the same time, she can be so like smart about the all the like kind of like the framing of things, the mechanics of storytelling. I think that's a very rare, wonderful combination and why she's so massively successful. And she's a lot of fun.
I love watching her long typed out Instagram stories. So I first interacted with you during an interview. You did an interview with Harris County Public Library celebrating 100 years for You Love Me. Um, that's also how I first met her. She did a dark Spotify Green Room interview. It's not called that anymore. But basically Spotify version of Clubhouse.
Oh, okay.
She did an
Yeah.
interview for that for the press tour for season three, and I asked her quite a few questions there as well. Like she is like I agree with everything you just said about her. Like and that poet in her and the everything you said, like it you and her working together is a perfect storm to say the least.
Agreed. Yeah, I like her poetry, her sci-fi, like the way she is so true to her passion and her passions go to different places. And I love the way she kind of naturally mixes things together. So that's a dream partner, absolutely. Like when, like, because I feel like in my own way I do that, but differently than her. And yeah. And she, yeah, and like, and she's really funny too.
Hilarious.
Yes.
She said that her cure for writer's block is that she lays down imagining that she's explaining to an alien about the world that she lives in, and that like having that conversation with this imaginary alien in her head gives her like helps like talking to myself or talking to someone having someone to listen helps me with writer's block so I understand why it makes sense.
Absolutely. I love that. And that, like, that stillness too, and being able to talk to an imaginary friend. And I love that she chose an alien because sometimes you get like kind of mired in this world. And that's a great way to get out of this world and into like a larger, more emotional space that's just kind of pure. So that makes sense to me. And that's great writing advice, don't you think, too?
Yeah.
Yes.
I also understand that your history with being on set goes as far back as when you were a background character for The Street. Can you tell me a
Yes.
bit more about that? I've always wondered about the background acting experience. I found that there can be some pretty good stories to tell about it.
Yeah, oh, to be young and broke in New York and find a job like that where there's endless amounts of food on set and people and it's the standing around all day. So I think when you're looking, you know how they say looking for a job is the hardest job. That's what I love so much about that you're with all these other people in a really creative atmosphere, kind of like secondhand, unintentionally learning things, just how things work. And then you get hair and makeup. And I remember like learning that like, oh, like right, I'm just going to do the same little thing over and over again. My job is to walk from here to there and not look at the camera. And I loved that. And to be shooting like in Central Park in New York and making the show was so much fun. And then going to the wrap party, like all of it was just that was a dream come true time in life. And I highly recommend anyone. I feel like I did similar things when I first moved to LA. It's a great way to meet people and to keep your hopes up and your spirit alive too, because you're helping make something. And when you're creative, it's not always going to be like your thing. And it's just the best way to learn from something that's actually in the process of being made and fun. And then also, again, I'll say the free food.
Yeah, that stuck out to me. Like
Hmm.
being young, broke, and having to take food out your daily budget every single
Yeah.
day. But that sounds like a solution to that as well.
Also, what I loved about the street that I didn't realize until I got here and started to do other things was that so much of it was outside or a set where also there would be scenes with no background and you had time off. So when I got here to LA, I did a couple game shows and holy shit, that's different where you're like trapped there for like several hours. And I feel like they tell you that, but again, you just moved to a new city and don't have any money and it's a break from like looking for a job because you are working and you can't be on your phone, you can't be like beating yourself up, you're just sitting with other people. But on a game show, you're there for like 10 hours and sometimes you can't get up and go to the bathroom and things like that. So mostly on the street, I loved that feeling of like the freedom, like the best of both worlds. And that was
Right.
inspired. I was wanted to do that because my brother had been an extra in School Ties when I was in high school, movie I loved to death. And
Hmm.
I went to that set like, yeah, this is a pretty good job, you know? Like,
Yeah. I
yeah.
would I would I would I think I'll put that on my bucket list now, like being a background character for
Yep.
sure. How do you feel about the bridge between you and Stephen King that has developed over the years? From him having positive things to say about the first few books shortly after its release, to having a couple characters inspired by you and your late father in a book that he had co-authored, to now writing a spin-off anthology for one of his greatest works. How does all of that feel, and what does it mean to you?
Permanently speechless. And yeah, it's like it brings puts tears in my eyes because it's just his work over. I mean, I think it's that way for so many of us. There's so much of it. He's inspired me for my whole life. And I feel like I grew up in a house, yeah, with my father reading him all the time. And that bridge is unbelievable. Like I'll never quite believe that. And I feel like everyone who he's blessed with his, support says the same kind of thing that you just can't really believe it, if that makes sense. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, yeah, and believe it or not, you're doing that same exact thing for me by being on my channel. Like I only have
Good.
like 50K, but
Yeah.
you know,
Hey, there's no such thing as only. The people that love something or, yeah, to me, that's like not a numbers thing. So, yeah.
yeah, like so once again, like thank you. And now let's talk about the fourth installment of the U series. I'm excited to hear your introspection on it because I haven't actually seen you make any comments on its context like you have with previous books. Um, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of book four is how different the storytelling is, how experimental it seems to be from its original format, which is ironically the same thing you season four did of the show. What was the inspiration for a Joe Goldberg novel to go in this direction?
Do you mean for you and only you?
Yeah, book
Yes.
four.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like with each book, like much as it's a part of a series, I have to feel like I'm challenging myself and doing something I haven't done before. I think most writers would say the same thing. Like, if you're not going to be like in that, what the fuck am I doing place, then why are you going to write it? Like the
Hmm.
only way to grow and like challenge is to do that. So I really like, I feel like I'd ended with him in Florida and I'd started to like think of a story in Florida. And then it was like, stepping aside from it, going with my gut and thinking, no, what Joe does, like something I like about him and that's so quintessential to that character from like the point of Genesis with him is that he moves the fuck on, which as a people is not so easy for us if you're not a sociopath, psychopath, whatever you want to call him. So it
Hmm.
felt like, okay, no, this is someone who always finds something new to do, someone new to be. And also, I just loved the idea because of his authority issues of him in a classroom with a teacher, with someone who has more than him. I think it's always like finding a way to
Hmm.
punch up. And it felt really good to bring him to Harvard to think like, I think of you as like him dealing with like sort of like privileged 20 somethings and who were both younger and had more, than him in some ways. And then Hidden Bodies was like, oh, he hates Los Angeles and that's awful. And that's a whole other system he doesn't think is
Hmm.
fair. It felt natural to like, oh, and then like to bring him somewhere. And You Love Me, yes, of course, going somewhere where everyone has the history of like, oh, growing up together and being connected. So
Hmm.
it felt great to go to an academic setting, and especially Harvard, where he could feel both superior and not good enough all at once. And it's all about getting that bee in his bonnet. And I
Hmm.
think with the show, like it was great to go. I had Cambridge, Massachusetts, they had Cambridge, UK. And that was one of those things where I was just starting to write to book and like talk to Sarah. And they always do, I think, as the show goes along, a mixtape. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna hear what I'm doing and then find their own way to like, yeah, do their own thing.
That's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned two things. I'm glad you mentioned the Florida thing, but then the jump to Massachusetts because I was wondering about that. Like I remember the book ended in Florida, and then suddenly we're here, and then in the show, season three ended with him going to Paris, but then ends up taking place in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he moves around, you know what I mean? Like, and he doesn't want you to know what he's doing. And he is the type who's not going to sit in one place if it doesn't work out for him. And for me too, once he left New York, it was like, okay, let's keep this up. Like Joe is someone who will move on, go somewhere new, start something new, and get obsessed with something and then go in pursuit of it. So that's how, for me, it was like, all right, like if I keep him in Florida, it's just I couldn't picture him staying there after losing everything and being so miserable. Like it felt right to end that book that way. But then it felt like, no, by this point, he was going to fuck with us and he's going to have a whole new, set of problems and goals too. I think that's something that's important with him is the goals.
Yeah, and the other thing was you mentioned like speaking with Sarah or whomever and that'll so is it possible that that season four of You has somewhat of a inspiration from book four, despite the release gaps, because like you'll talk hand in hand with them as as both things are being developed.
Yeah, that we were like, it's hard to go back in time and remember. Like with books, you write so many drafts and being in communication. So not sure the timeline. But I feel like, yeah, they knew what I was doing and that we were all into the like academic thing. But when I write, I kind of go into the tunnel and then everything I look back on is a blur, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, I remember for season three, they had an advanced copy of You Love Me,
yes.
and a lot of people were saying like it's going to be the first book. This is going to be the first season of the show. Season four was going to be the first one that have like zero inspiration. But then when you look at it, like there are still similarities. It's still all there.
Yeah, they had, I think I see, I talked to them. I don't know what that, I would have to go back and look at old email, but I just know, I just remember talking to Sarah about like academia, Cambridge,
Hmm.
like the basics. And
Hmm.
by that point too, like, like the Joe in the show is, the journey is different than Joe in the
Hmm.
books by that point. So, makes sense that they're not exactly the same.
What is your overall view of the reception of the book? How do you feel about it? And did it help steer the direction for book five anyway?
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you fall in love with each book when you're doing it. And I like that was a great writing experience for me. And reader feedback was, as always, like wonderful. I have the best readers in the world who get obsessed and see things that I hadn't seen and connections and all that. And it's a great experience that absolutely part of that addictive thing makes me want to do another. But I wanted to take my time with this one. Like it didn't, especially because I was going backwards with Joe. Like, so that's why I feel like this one took me a little longer, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Because after like taking someone forward for so long and you're going to go backwards, it's like need a minute to like sort of really establish his voice in my head and kind of erase everything that I've written, because that's what writing a prequel is. Like that's the mind fuck there.
Right. I've heard an observation from some readers that every book feels like it features a new Joe. Like maybe there's a huge leap in personality from you to For You Knowing You. Do you feel like Joe has grown less radical since where he started? And if so, is it intentional or is it a result of the gaps between writing them? Because I myself did notice that Joe wasn't nearly as bad in For You Knowing You as he was in the first one. In fact, I feel like he's getting closer to human as Shoujo.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we all grow and change, and I want that to be true for him too. So that feels natural that like I don't think that like someone stagnates just because they're capable of violence. Like
Hmm.
I want him to evolve, and it feels like he's real to me in that way. And also to kind of his version of learning lessons of like part of that, I think that that's what happened for me and You Love Me was like him sort of experiencing for the first time like oh shit like actual consequences in a meaningful way on a bunch of different levels. So of course he's going to go to Cambridge with like a sense of loss. I think loss changes you and makes you more hesitant and kind of can soften your edges. And I think with Joe things are always getting worse, and when he was younger and you like to me yeah that was a bitter moment in life, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like I think that's an age thing too. And I don't want, I couldn't stay with like writing these books if it was like, okay, like this is the same kind of crazy. Because also I think like different kinds of people make us different kinds of crazy, if that makes sense.
Yes, 100%. I don't know where to start with that. So it's like that was a really solid answer, by the way.
Thank you.
I what you said about how you want growth and like potential to be true for Joe as well, and not for him to be locked in a cage, basically, with his identity. That reminds me of this debate I have with you fans. People believe that Joe isn't capable of love, and I just disagree with that. I think he feels love like everyone else. It's just that it's how he shows that love that's a hell of a lot different from everyone else's, and that's where it's controversial. It reminds me of that. Like Joe is still a human being at the end of the day. There is something wrong with him and radical about him. However, that doesn't take away from all the other humanizing aspects of Joe. So, that's a
Yeah.
very satisfying answer for why he's so different in Funeral You, because he goes from um, you know, throwing someone's paycheck in an unflushed toilet to uh defecating in someone's toilet and not flushing. Like there's so much that he's done, and then like, and you love me. It's there's not that much there, and then for only you, I think the only thing kind of crazy is him taking pride in the fact that he's naked while on the phone with someone. Like there's just not like I'm. The simple answer is that it's growth. So I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, and that we grow and then we kind of revert a little bit. And I like to catch him in those growth spurts almost. And I like what you said about the love because I don't like I understand that debate. I love that that's happening. To me that's a great debate because that's part of what I'm getting at. I know for me when I'm writing is like this is how this one person experiences and expresses himself. It's not a judgment call. It's just like you're exactly like to me like of course whenever we feel like love to us it's real. It doesn't mean that it's real in the like world sense or what how anyone else would
Mm-hmm.
define it, but I absolutely for me, I think he does experience love and it's just his version of it. But like this,
Hmm.
you could say that for all of us, and I think one of those things that always inspires me, like in the back of my head, is of mice and men, that squeezing something to death form of obsession, love that is in there for various reasons and doesn't mean he's like I didn't want to write him as like ha 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 I'm addicted to killing like I can love those kind of stories but with this character it wasn't that for me like it was never that he's gonna like he's slicing and dicing.
Hmm.
It's that just things overwhelm him and he has very few coping skills that are sort of good for the world.
So on that note, let's transition perfectly into my next question. Let's talk about the approach you took for debts in this and for only you. I noticed how it's kind of safely built off of Joe's kill sobriety by having him set up traps, which he would probably argue isn't the same as killing people directly.
Oh yes, I really liked I like when he gets smart like that and also to me he's all like okay, especially in that book with the bicycle trap like if you let anyone in this world know your absolute utter weaknesses, I mean it's sort of an invitation.
Yep.
Unfortunately, most people do not take people up on that invitation, but I love when he kind of learns that like, oh, and I feel like he starts to learn that and you love me, and then he really applies that and for you and only you. And also it's so sick when as I say that out loud, I'm like, think of how sick that sounds,
Hmm.
like because it's still murder, but that's him growing and getting a little, savvier and sort of reverse compassion that
Hmm.
like clearly like I think that there's always a lot of projection with him and he's like that being at Harvard around all those people makes him very like self-conscious and frustrated yet having so little compassion for someone else who has the same issues. So he's like, I'll just kill him, but yet I won't kill him, but I'll let him kill himself. Yeah, I think
Right.
I that felt like where someone goes, as
Yeah.
they move through the world and with people at different stages of life too.
And would Sarah Beth Swallows happen to be a complete self-insert of the author?
Oh, no, 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 no. No, I like she, oh God, I love her and I loved them together and I loved Joe like kind of not knowing what to do with her. And I admire the hell out of her for like being in that room with all of them and the way she's getting like shit on a little bit here and there. Yeah, like everything starts a little bit to some degree of like someone you've met or some feeling you've had around people. But like by the time you're done with the book, I'm like, she's real. Like she exists. Like
Yeah, like that surprises me because I was like 60, 70% certain she was very similar to you.
I mean, to me, like they're all like I'm in all of them a
Right,
little
right.
for any writer, that thing of like, oh, you
Yeah.
in ways that you're not always the one who knows, or kind of what the feedback you get from other people. So possibly I'd have to yeah, have to give that some more thought. Probably blushing a little now too.
It's it's that thing called the proxy for the audience. It feels like she's spouting things that I feel like the audience has been wanting to say based on observation about Joe over the
Mm,
course of 4 books at this point. And we know that it's because of Joe not having a mother or whatever his situation is. We know all these things, and having a character finally get to say these things and piece them together, it feels like is the author finally in the room with us? Is she here to like actually set the record
mm.
straight?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean I see what you mean. Yep.
Yeah, and A follow-up question to that before we move on to the next section. How much does she truly love her husband? Her attachment that leans toward other man reminds me of Ellen and Ross.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. It was something I thought about a lot. And I think speaking of love, that's like you could ask the same question of her, you
Hmm.
know? Like I think that there's a certain coldness to her that she lives a little more in herself and for herself. And
Hmm.
that she loves him, but she can only feel that to some extent, you
Hmm.
know? And it's the same way with all those children. That was fun to write that Thanksgiving. Yeah.
From your understanding of Joel's character as a person who wrote him, what do you perceive to be the major stumbling block in his personal journey, the biggest thing holding him back as a person?
Oh man, that he just can't accept that people are like have their own interior lives too.
Hmm.
You know, that like you like I think of yeah, going back to like playing with dolls as kids, like when you play with dolls, they do what you want and you control the world and I feel like because he was denied that relaxation, he doesn't know and that sort of time to be imaginative and play out relationships and that his first model with his parents was so unhealthy, but also something inside of him. Like I feel like there's always nature nurture. I don't want to make it too much like the childhood because so many people have childhoods and like go on to be, you know, like okay in life. So to me, um, yeah, he just can't accept that people have free will, and he doesn't know how to get let down.
So that lines up perfectly with what you said a long time ago. I don't know how long ago you said this. Uh, it was a Reddit Q&A, but it was a really long time ago, at least 7 years ago.
Yeah, that,
But
I'm vague memories of that. Yeah.
you've said you said that Joe has this hope that life will be fair. He seems to believe that he uh, should get the desired outcome if he does everything quote unquote right, while also not understanding that it's not a good idea to be so optimistic about the women he's romantically pursuing because if you place this perfectly imperfect expectation on them, well, how are they going to ever truly live up to that? Is that even possible? That's what I think holds Joe back. He blinds himself and expects too
Yes.
much by getting his hopes up.
Literally blinds himself by putting the girl on the pedestal.
Right.
And that's, yeah. And so, exactly, as she grows larger and larger, the light is gone, and he's not even looking at the real person anymore, you know, and doesn't know that. So, yeah. And that's where I think he mixes up love and projection.
Another thing that I like is that Joel is considered a textbook INFJ story, which is a Myers-Briggs personality type, the 16 personality types. And Frank James, a YouTuber who covers the topic of the 16 personality types, did a video on how INFJs in particular ruin relationships because they chase after the abstracts instead of being content with the human condition, more or less.
Oh wow. Yes, I love Myers-Briggs, all of it, and I've just never become the expert that I want to be, so I would like to see that video.
Yeah, I'll definitely send it to you. I'm an INFJ myself, which is part of why
Oh.
I feel was that an uh-oh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so thankfully Joe in a very productive way puts things into perspective for me. Like helps me know, okay, this relationship didn't work out for me because I was accepting this and not accepting that, and I was stuck on that. And it's good to have that example. And so yeah, I think that Joe being an INFJ needs to be studied more. Like, cause it's the biggest consensus about Joe, and it helps people know like where his journey is. And the
Oh, I love that.
thing about Meyer Briggs is, go ahead.
Go through the category, like what each word means to refresh.
The I is intuitive.
Oh, intuitive. Yeah.
Um, the F is feeling, the J is judging, the N is I always forget the N, because I
Ooh.
always think that it's tied to the IN and intuitive. Um, but it's also because it's not the N is like the one word letter that isn't the same as the spelling of the word. Uh,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
so, but it's all at the same time, INFJs or like INTJs, intuitive thinking judges.
Mm.
INFJs are so basically feeling and thinking are considered opposites, but an INFJ happens to be a very very big thinker as well. So if you're an INFJ, you might as well also be an INTJ as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, like the feeling thinking, because I think that Joe absolutely mistakes his feelings for thoughts. And if he had, this is back to that, if he was better at talking to himself,
Hmm.
but yeah, like there's a lot going there. There's a lot of that to me in every book of like mistaking his feelings for the absolute of what's happening, or not understanding that, like, yeah, in life, people are allowed to and going to hurt your feelings, and it does not mean that they meant to or that you get to punish them for it. That part of your job on this planet is to like learn how to like deal with things that upset you.
Okay, so I did get it right, the N. So the N is intuitive. It's introverted,
Okay.
intuitive, thinking and judging.
All right. Yeah, I had a feeling introvert might be in there. Yep.
Yeah, introverted, intuitive, thinking and judging. And love is considered an ENFJ, extroverted, intuitive, uh, uh, feeling, judging.
Mm.
So the same thing as Joe, but an extrovert.
Yes, and a girl. So I feel like then walking through the world with a different response to her
Yeah,
actions.
yeah. Uh, to date, who do you believe is Joe's best match, both in the books and the show? Can I
Wow.
go first?
Oh yeah, yes.
In the show, I think that's Kate. In the books, I would have to go with Mary Kay, though I've seen very strong arguments for it being love in both mediums.
Yeah, I mean, on like I would go love in that way and kind of with both. Like in the show, I feel like they did that very well and kind of capitalized on one of his greatest flaws, like that judgment, that
Hmm.
like what does that say, rules for thee and not for me kind of thing. And going
Hmm.
back to like, oh, it's one thing when he does it, but when a woman does something, it's awful because of his complex that like we're supposed to be like absolutely perfect and docile at the end of the day, and gentle creatures. And yeah, like if only, like I love if only in writing. And to me, like it felt in the like in the show for sure, and then in the books, I remember like when I was starting to write You Love Me and thinking about how if Joe had had a son, a daughter, it would be different than if he had had a son.
Hmm.
And thinking like, what does that say about him? And that being like the thing that like kind of just broke them. And for her as well too, like that neither of them could handle having this little boy, because they like she had her issues with her brother and this enabling woman, and he like wants a girl to protect. And in essence, like for both of them, like men, even though like women bear the brunt of the punishments, like men are the enemy too, like,
Yeah.
and the threat of another man in the room, just neither one of them could handle that.
I love how we're on the same wavelength because every time I ask you a question, you answer the question, and then the answer also bridges perfectly into the next question.
Oh, I
So,
love that. Yeah, and I just want to quick say that I like what you said about Mary Kay too.
mhm,
And it's just that to me, like there was something that like I feel like sh they didn't quite connect in the right way. And she was more of his mother, and that she was madly in love with someone else in a level that she was never going to be with him.
mhm.
So
That's
anyway,
that's interesting. I guess I with Mary Kay, I was kind of obsessed with the whole like arc of that buildup of getting to the point where he's proposing to her and all that. Like that was what I was going crazy for. Like him, I loved seeing him succeed in that regard, like fail and
yeah,
succeed. Because there were times where there were huge drawbacks, such as what was it, 5 months he was in the hospital,
yep,
um, like a really long time. Like there were drawbacks, and then but he would keep bouncing back, and eventually he was going to be able to call Mary Kay his wife, and then it ended. Um, so I think actually having that full circle experience made it to where it was the most complete partnership he's had. Uh,
yeah,
yeah, but then you have things that turn out play out differently, but not normal, like with the ending of Hidden Bodies and Funeral You, and it's just like with Mary Kate, it's like they actually reached milestones and made it work and made it happen.
yes, they sure did. Yeah, it's breaking my heart a little to remember. Yes. Yeah.
So next question is, what essentially went wrong? Which you started answering this question. What essentially went wrong with love and post hidden bodies and into You Love Me? She had what somewhat describe as a radical character shift and transition. And I want to understand exactly what was the root of it all that caused separation and for her to be in such a state of madness. Was it that Joe focused too much on baby 40 and not enough on her? Was it him abandoning 40 before his death, finally catching up to him in her mind as the love spell wore off? Was it her parents ultimately not approving of the relationship going any farther, or all of these things?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's one of those things, it's not in the book. I wrote that a lot, like of what they were like as little parents together. And for me, she was someone who couldn't be a mother and didn't like being seen. And I think that's another way in which they were sort of ironically compatible, that they both want to, on the one hand, want to share everything, on the one hand, want to be mysterious.
Wow.
For me, once that baby was there, there's like there to me, there's nothing like even when you're in a room with a baby, there's an intimacy there that's like nonverbal that like when you look in a baby's eyes and it sees you. And I think that they are the kind of both people that it undid them and they couldn't handle that intimacy together. And
Wow.
I think, yeah, so I had written a lot of that and that, yes, like she was like sort of extreme, like either all over that child or kind of ignoring that child. And they were both possessive in different ways. And it's like the way that so many people like have the baby to fix things, it was like they had the baby and it ruined things.
That's wow. That's
And
not at
again,
all what I was expecting, but that's a
oh,
good
okay.
that's incredible, like to have that insight. Were you about to say something?
Oh yeah, and that by the time like when she is at the place where she is, I think that there's a loneliness that sets in because like much like him, like she's sort of she hates that she misses him kind of thing. So she has to, it's the sort of version of like if I can't have you and more like that if you have the child and don't love the child and like to me I wanted to like I felt like that was something that would happen to her after being such a character who sort of lives in the shallow end a lot of her life and to suddenly again be have this daily examination of a baby just looking at you and to that end just loving you or just expressing their emotions whether happy sad hungry. I thought this girl can't handle this, and neither can Joe. And that I thought of the kind of the baby is killing them both in that way without meaning to, but yeah.
And Love is a bit older than Joe, right?
Yes. Yep. And by naming the baby 40, like just doing I like to me like I like them too because I feel like, oh God, they just did everything wrong. Like
Hmm.
every little thing. Like don't name the boy 40, Like don't
I
say that word all day, every day. Yeah.
yeah, it makes me gag to say it myself, baby 40. Like, yeah.
Yes.
I've got to say that similar to Beck, I have a very complicated relationship with the character of Love. I struggle with knowing whether or not I like Beck at all, but I at least know that I like Love, though she ranks very low on my top 10 list. But I don't know how to respect her anymore after the changes she's gone through in both the books and the show. My theory has been that they're broken versions of the character after a number of traumatic events, but my struggle with the character lies with knowing what kind of character she is at heart. Like, is the love we got in book three just more of love we got in the book before? Or would this be love in an isolated incident that wouldn't apply had she not been so affected by everything that's preceded? So, like you mentioned, they got every little thing wrong. But one thing I
Yeah.
do know for certain is that I certainly love book love way more than I do show love.
Yeah. When they talk, like, I feel like these books are always at heart for me about loneliness. And that jury duty scene with Love, when she talks about that, that really kind of crystallized it for me that, like, the way that having a baby for anyone can be a very isolating time in life, a very lonely thing. And for someone like Love to kind of like do that on the heels of losing someone, like, she's never known the world without her brother, and he's dead. And now there's this new baby and she doesn't feel what she feels she's supposed to feel. So that judgment for the first time in her life sort of goes on her because she's someone to me who was always kind of blamed everyone else. And in some ways she has a right to do that. But yes, I wanted to capture that like her specific kind of loneliness that would be for me her undoing. That like it's life is pretty bad if you go to jury duty looking for a family,
Hmm.
And then how that turns to anger. Like I could feel that building up in her. And that's an anger she's had her whole life about her family. And to me, also, again, like going back to the loneliness that, like, like, as a twin, as someone anyone who's been in a codependent tight relationship like that, whether you're born into it in family or find it in life, not being able to go into that and trying to build that with someone else is like I can see that as a very like triggering thing. So I think it's a combination when you talk like did she blow up? I'm like no, like to me like she couldn't bear being Love Quinn anymore, if that makes
Mm,
sense. Like by the t
right.
like that's the kind of thing that when she went all the way up there and trying not to like give spoilers if anyone hasn't read it, but that like there is a depression there, the way sometimes like when you see yourself the way other people see you that she
Hmm.
couldn't handle. And that's
Hmm.
the part of her too that I think she also something she always had her little ego about her and didn't want to
Hmm.
admit to problems as well.
Right. And very insightful. This question was inspired by a debate that I had with someone when I reviewed For Knowing You. uh, how important do you think it is that the person who Joel is pursuing learns about how dark he is? And the reason I ask is because the strongest argument I've heard for why Love is Joel's best match isn't because she's like him or isn't scared off by him, but because she truly knew him and accepted him. And a big part of his journey seems to be seeking recognition, the kind that he missed from his mother. Mary Kay didn't live long enough to find an incriminating box like Beck did, and
Yep.
Wonder drifted away before it could get there, as did Joe. And with Kate from the TV series, well, she actually empathizes with him because she seems to be a parallel to Joe in the ways that Love wasn't. I view Kate as Love with that thinking attribute, whereas Love is way more feeling attribute. So like ENTJ kind of thing. That's how I view Love, and that's why I view Love as a fixed. I view Kate as a fixed version of Love.
Mm.
And so on the flip side, do you think the one for Joe could ever be someone who never learns that he's murdered people and is a bit off the rails? Can Joe become content in silence, followed by carrying such a secret from his partner to his grave?
I love that question. It's something I think about a lot with every book. I'm going to say that's a good wavelength thing because it is something I think about of like, is there a world where this could be the one and what that means? And that's the part of me, like, as the writer, you don't want to be judging your characters. Like, I'm not going to feel bad if I think, could he be happy? Like, do you know what, like, because it's the human condition for anyone who just wants to be happy. And goes back to that, like, are they capable of that? So yeah, I think about that. I'm glad you asked that question because I want that to be on your mind when you're reading these books, when you're in this world. Like, what does it feel like to want and wonder if someone who's done all these terrible things seems to have found someone that they could be happy with if they could just leave things in the past? Because I think for me also that's like a larger version of like a darker version of what it means for anyone normal to go through life. Like, does someone need to know all your secrets in order to love you? And to that end, do you need to know all their secrets? And I think Joe, that's the double-edged sword
And do you
of
feel like not only do you need to know their secrets, do you feel like they need to know as well?
exactly. Yep. So yep, I'll always be asking that question when it comes to him and that's a like depending on the frame of mind I'm in, how I feel about that personally. And then writing wise, like I like when he's around, like when he, for me and for you and only you, what drives him nuts, like from the outside with Wonder, is that like this is someone who is actually growing. Do you know what I mean? Like she is
Hmm.
actually allowing herself to want things, and maybe yes, getting a little obnoxious through it, but like his unforgiving way and wanting someone to sort of stay in their lane is part of the problem there too. Like, because again, that's the control issue. And that she doesn't feel bad about things she's done. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, and his guilt, like, is something like he has guilt and he doesn't. I feel like it's also
Hmm.
all of this is about guilt too, and shame as people. And I feel like I just got lost in my head, but like,
So when re-listening to the Hidden Bodies audiobook to do research for my season five fan write, season five was the final season, so I was like, I wonder what I come up with for what the season should be like, and then compare when the season comes out, see which one's better and what my idea of what a perfect ending look like. So I revisited the chapter where Love accepts Joe for who he is and retrieves the mug of urine for him. And coincidentally enough, the answer to my question is also there because Love says to Joe that you can't be in this with me if you won't be in this with me, if you're not going to actually be in it with me. And Joe's like, she's right. You can't really love someone. You can't really love someone all the way if you're not going to tell the truth and the whole truth.
yeah. Yes, and I do understand that. But then it's a matter of you, like as the teller of your story, first having to be honest with yourself, you
Hmm.
know? And that's what I think that both Joe and Love
Yeah.
suffer. And in a
Perfect.
parallel world, they could have like grown in that way together.
Hmm. So before we move on to the you first questions, why is Joe so lenient or tolerant of everyone? He seems to let people disrespect him to his face and walk all over him and continues to play it nice when it's clear that in his head he feels the opposite. Is it cowardness? Is he trying to maintain a certain image? Would he rather be the bigger person? Is that he just can't be bothered? Or does he feel deserving of the disrespect in a way since he does way worse and just feels lesser?
For me, it's loneliness at the end of the day. And it's, you know, the movie Singles.
I don't.
Oh, okay. Singles is a great movie. It's Cameron Crowe, but there's a great scene where Matt Dillon is talking about growing up, like living near the airport, and how the sound of the planes was awful, and it was terrible. And he was like, "Oh my God, I can't take these planes." And he moves away, and he's like, "You know what? I miss those planes." I think that
Hmm.
that's ultimately Joe's comfort zone. If you feel you're getting the short edge of the stick, and you have a long stick, you don't know what to do with it, so you just
Hmm.
start chopping it down because you know that you have, like, you know how to have the short end of the stick. So I
Hmm.
think that's where like that's one of his many problems, that I like to come up against. Like he claims he wants things to be good, but then when there is good, he finds the bad in it. And when there's bad, he does get off on setting up situations where there's going to be more of it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like yes. So that's where not the best at like intaking anything good. That whatever is familiar is always more appealing than what's good.
Yeah.
So that like if you grew up in this world where you felt maligned, ignored, and that you got the short end of the stick, that even as an adult, if you don't like that, it's a lifelong journey of like, that it's
Ah,
almost
I
like
see
grief. It's
now.
non-linear. You can go through periods or be with people where you get better at kind of solving those old wounds, but or you don't. And for me, Joe, like constantly, like no matter what he claims to want or what he says, there's some part of him that knows how to exist when he feels fucked over. So he
Right.
even when he's complaining about it. And that's part of where he's so defensive.
Okay, I get it now. It's what
That's
he's
what I
what
like
he
for you and
knows.
only you. It was fun to have him in that situation of feeling someone else is putting him on a pedestal or shooting him down. But ultimately, yeah, he kind of wants to hate these, like he kind of wants them to shit all over him.
Yeah.
People know that you want that, they're going to.
So the you first questions, which won't be out when this main video is out. It's just a note for the viewers. Return to my channel in a month or two, and then you'll find this around June 9th, is when I'll release this.
Yep.
So now we're going to transition into your other latest projects that I think are very interesting. And I think the viewers would feel the same. Starting with The Bad Friend, your recent short story. Well, I said recent, but I wrote this back in I wrote these questions a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I've seen and read you say numerous times that you were working on something psychological and from a woman's perspective. Does The Bad Friend happen to be just that, or do you have other projects from this angle that you're working on, perhaps in longer form, closer to Joe?
Yeah, that was one of them, but there is something in longer form I'm working on that I'm not ready to talk about at all. But yep, like that's all I'm gonna say to that. Yeah, yeah.
To
Gotta
say the
protect the babies when they're still in the
Yeah,
oven,
of course, of
both in the
course.
oven and then all the heat goes out and yeah.
To say the least, The Bad Friend is probably your most honest tale about the world we live in and the people that are in it. It exposes the curse that comes with putting too much faith in works of fiction, because the truth is the story of life isn't always problem and solution. Sure, there's always a rising action, falling action, and a climax at the center, but the ending isn't always resolution. Sometimes it's just a stopping point, and life goes on to give you more exposition until that stops. And being in Ellen's head, being told that I'm Ellen with the second person thing that it's got going on doesn't help at all. It's another knife twister. Don't you find it frustrating having to lead a story like that and to have it go the way it does?
No, I love it. I love when things are open-ended. Like I feel like in like one of my favorite stories of all time, like the first short story as a like young writer that spoke to me so loudly was "Where are you going? Where have you been?" Just like when the story ends and there's an abyss there and you don't know what to do with that abyss. And that's to me like all short stories have like that can have that power that something is packed in there and then at the end you know less than you did at the start kind of thing. Or you know you don't know what to feel and Yeah, and you're kind of trapped. And to me, like I think of like, a zoom like into someone's mouth screaming. So I like that.
That makes sense coming from you, like with like your storytelling methods. I always knew that the resolution format of storytelling was an issue we humans face, and that it deceives us in some areas. And
Mm.
for you, and only you showed me that I was ready for a different kind of ending, something that people wouldn't emotionally want to expect because everyone should be happy in the end. But
Yeah.
this book showed me maybe I'm not ready, or at least not as much as I thought I was.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. Yes. I know that feeling. And that's what I mean. I like when things shake you up like that and make you understand something about yourself or think like, yeah, learn something about yourself too in that moment. And then you connect it to that time in your life. And yeah, that's the beauty of like stories, right? Like the moment we find them. And then if you read that in a couple of years, who knows? You might feel differently.
Would you be interested in writing books that are canonical to the TV series, whether that be a companion book, a spin-off novel, or maybe even bringing into fruition the fictional books that exist in the show, such as Beck's autobiography, The Dark Face of Love, or Caged, a POV on love as the monster, because yeah, Sherry and Carrie Conrad think that love was the monster, and that's how Joel's able to keep going in the show. The same could be done for the book continuity. There's Beck's short stories. There's books that Joe, Wonder, and even Sly Karen have worked on that might make an interesting read.
You never know. I feel like I always like what's for me to imagine really doing that because for me as like the writer of the books that started that like it's always comes back to Joe. And the minute I go there, it would be like I'd be honestly overwhelmed with what to do first, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like that, because like you said, there's so much, and I could think of many. Like I've always thought, oh, it'd be really exciting to write Peach's version of things. Like I would love to write all of Sarah Swallow's books that are mentioned. Like my
Hmm.
head sort of explodes, and I don't know which one I would pick. And so, but yeah, never say never, right?
Yeah. So, I'm gonna turn my cam on for a second. Hello.
Hello
Uh,
there.
so you know what this is. You might have seen it,
I've
and
seen that.
yeah, and I think it was in the picture of the AR copy when I posted about it. Um, it's actually from the production of You.
Yep.
I was thankful to receive it from someone on that works on the show. Um, I thought it would be really fun to do a review video of Beck's book, like for the first time ever, because technically no one's read it ever because it's not a real story. So what I literally did, I told you how I wrote season 5 to then review it. I literally wrote Beck's book. I wrote 50 chapters of it,
Oh,
um,
wow.
with
Yep.
the stories and poems format. So it has like stories, like short stories
Mm.
that are basically Joe, uh, combating Beck's ideas, and then poems, which is Beck speaking from the heart, uh, and then those two kind of clash together, and then the actual like narrative chapters that actually like tell Beck's life story to help the reader understand her. I basically wrote a whole book for fun to review it without
Oh,
actually
that's great.
releasing it.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Isn't that, it's just the joy of loving something, like I relate to that. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, so if you ever need a
Yeah.
starting point, that would be a good starting point. It would just need the Caroline Kepnes and Sarah Gamble
Yep.
touch, really.
There it is. Yeah. Thank you for that.
The Similarly, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there's a fictional book that was written and narrated by one of the characters from the film that you can buy in real life called Look Out for Little Guy by Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man. I feel like people would go crazy to be able to own Beck's book that Joe wrote, or even just be able to learn more in areas that remain vague. And page by page, a book provides the perfect floor for that.
Yes. Yes. I don't, and it's what's so much fun about modern times when it's easy for us to share these ideas and these visions and like you can have fun with that and put it out there and that other people hungry for the same thing can find it and then you get to discuss like what you agree on, what you don't. I love all that. Yes. We are lucky that's one way in which we are lucky to be alive now.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Um, so this is that question that you answered at the very beginning. What's the current status of the Providence TV show, and how involved will you be in the making of it? Would that be similarly to how involved you were with you, or would that be more than, less than? Uh, and so you said that Aylesbury didn't work out, right?
I think, yeah, it didn't, but who knows about the future? And then because I'm not writing a Providence series, I feel like, yeah, I would be able to be more involved in a way that like you can be when you're not, like for me, like being in two different domains at once. So knock on wood, I hope so.
Wooden desk. There you go.
Yep.
The what other projects do you have on the table that you'd like to shed some light on? Like the ones that you are able to talk about somewhat. Like what are some that have been on the shelf for a while but just haven't seen daylight?
I guess I've got like a lot of short stories out there over the years that are online if you Google and like sleuth around. And I'd like to put out a short story collection at some point because I was in so many great literary magazines over the years, and a lot of them go offline or they're away. And so now the story is nowhere to be found online. So I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to put all those out there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on an adaptation of something that I'm sorry, I'm not gonna like talk about just yet, but
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that'll go well and we'll be talking about that one of these days too.
I've seen you make a mention about numerous different projects at different points in time, but outside the U sequels, so far I've only seen like The Bad Friend come out, and Room 24, which for a while I was so excited about it. And then of course your involvement with the Sands anthology was announced. If I were in your position, what I would want for you is for you to build another widely accepted media with the series that I've been solely consistently working on for the past like 5 years. Well, I do plan to keep it going for a long time once it's out. I want my storytelling capabilities to be appreciated beyond that. Like I'll work on separate stories of competing magnitude. Some will indirectly take place in the same continuity, some won't. But the magic is that in you, uh, uh, it doesn't just rest in the idea, but the person who came up with you more so even. So when I make my debut, I plan to build off of my story with more volumes and other forms of long form storytelling. But after that, I've got to ask myself, what can I write that's just as good as this, or maybe even better, that people will also go crazy for? Because Stan Lee isn't just known for Spider-Man. He came out with other legendary characters and stories before then and after. And maybe that next thing is Providence. Like that's what maybe that's who knows. Like you said, never say never. The TV show could theoretically shed light on like the genius behind it because it is a really good read, and maybe it's something else that we've got to see. But whatever it is, I look forward to reading it because I know it's there. Like I literally tell people that I think you're the next Stephen King.
Thank you. Oh, that's yeah, that are you sure? Yeah, that's yeah, thank you. I hope to prove you right on that. Time. Yeah.
At this point in your career in writing and television, now that you're a best-selling author that has had their work adapted to the screen, what else are you looking to accomplish? Are you still working toward any bigger picture of overarching goals, or do you just plan to continue writing and publishing?
Yeah, just writing and publishing, like still find like wanting to feel immersed and like I'm, growing and getting really into something and making it the best that it can be for this moment in life. That never changes, and then into that end, like the work never changes what it is to sit down and look at a blank screen and be like, what do I want to do with this? Yes. So I just want to keep doing that. I feel very lucky that I get to do that every day, most days. Yeah.
And I said this earlier today during my interview. I always say that when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life.
Yep. Amen. That's so true.
What advice would you give to your younger self when you were still aspiring to get where you are now?
Yeah, I would tell it like give it time. Like I think I would, as a person, as a young writer, like I guess when I look at my young, I would write something and be convinced like this is it, and then send it out that day like 50 places, and then a day later like oh there are 75 typos on the first page, or oh I didn't finish it. So I'd tell myself oh my God, like give it time. There's no rush. Life is long, and like it's enough to send something to yourself sometimes. You don't have to send it out to the whole world and to try and get away from it that like yeah like writing is hard, it's supposed to be, and you're supposed to like have those moments where you love something and it's the greatest and you want it to send it to everyone, and then in the middle of the night oh this is wrong, or I don't think I get that, or I have got to figure that out. So I would just tell myself to slow down.
So coming up now is like one of my favorite questions on this whole list. You're a writer who really steps into the realm of what the average reader might call unorthodox. You write characters honestly, their point of views are more honest than real people are on how they view things. Your social commentary is blunt, and you're not afraid to place characters in scenarios that are awkward from an outside perspective, like like the bathtub scene in Hidden Bodies, the the dual masturbation scene, sex scene, and You Love Me, and one I try to forget about in the first book where Joe tosses someone's last check into an unflushed toilet, and as a writer, I plan to do just that, tell stories that lead up to moments that may be uncomfortable to some. Because what's a story with restrictions? A great story shouldn't be just feel good, sad, scared, but a roller coaster of all those things. So, what would you say to other aspiring writers who not only are looking to get where you are, but also wants to do that without feeling like they should be playing it safe?
I think it's great advice that I got from a teacher in college was that write something that, and to me, it doesn't have to be your parents. It's who there's someone in life that you care about or that you know you're a little fucked up because you care but they think too much. Write something that if that person touched it, you would die, like that you
Mm-hmm.
would have to be dead. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that person is also like a voice in your head that you're like, or it's someone in the real world or someone you admire. But yeah, in that way that you can't write for the whole world at once, you got to write for yourself. And that it's good to have that audience of one, of to like take it back to like storytelling being me, me, you telling someone, one person a story. Why that person? Why that story? Why right now?
Wow, speechless. The Do you have a moment from your childhood or at any earlier point in your life that you often think back to that serves as a full circle moment when you look at where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, like some like moments as a child of like making things up for like being a kid at camp and telling a very stupid lie. And but that was true, like that was based in truth, like but my revealing my misunderstanding the world, feeling ashamed, feeling like exposed, and being told like you can't do that, like you can't talk, like say things like this. I feel like, well, yeah, now that's what I do for a living. Do you know what I mean? Like something that could be true, right? And doing that in the correct way on paper and calling it fiction, not to a camp counselor lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So last question for this section, then we have one more section, one small section. What's the greatest thing that you've overcome in your life since becoming the Caroline Kepnes that we see now?
Um, I don't think I've overcome it, but yeah, I lost my mother recently, and that's like I'll be
Right.
overcoming or learning to live in this world for a long time. Like that's a daily, it's like the most like true cliche in the world is grief is non-linear. So I don't think you overcome that, but on a daily basis, it feels like overcoming to just navigate through a new place,
Yeah,
because I'm very lucky to have had a very close relationship with her.
yeah.
And yeah, that's the constant, like, okay, telling myself that. Well,
Yeah, I knew how close you two were just from like following you after all these years. So I part of me felt that loss for you. And
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I even did like a moment of silence in my review video, but no non-spoiler review for you first. Because
Oh, wow.
I
Oh,
knew how
thank you.
much that meant to you.
That's so kind. And that's, yeah, I appreciate that so much. And she would too.
So now we're gonna do the Patreon questions. Thank you so much. This is a huge milestone for me, and it was
Oh, Garrett,
definitely worth the wait.
yeah, I'm honored to be a part of this milestone and do that with you. Like, thank you so much for being there and everyone who gave questions and you for hanging in all this time. I appreciate it very much. Like, very, very much.
If you could potentially give me a review as an interviewer for future people that
Oh,
I
yeah, I
want to
can do
bring on an
that.
interview, what would you say?
Excellent. Like really thoughtful questions, really good listener in the moment, which I think is a hard thing to do, having done a lot of interviews myself when you're trying to think of what you're saying next. But I felt like you engaged really, really well. And that was a great conversation. So that's to me, that's like the number one skill.
Yep, and that is a testament to how much I love what you've given us, what you've put out into the world, and as someone aspiring to the very same thing, and so it's like I'm taking a lot of mental notes, and I will probably watch this interview 50 times before the public sees it.
Yep.
Um,
I
but
love that. I relate to
yeah,
that too. Yes.
I even remember like previous questions that you've answered to other people and questions that I've asked you in previous interviews. Like, I really value based on the products that you put out, what you have to say as someone that was able to do that. It's like, if
Yeah.
best thing to do is go straight to the source, and you're
Yep.
a source that I resonate with the most. So Thank you so much. And
That means a lot to me, and thank you so much. Yes.
I'm proud to say to the viewers that when I did my 10-year anniversary video, I when I named the four people that I wanted to interview, uh, and you were one of them to agree. Two of those people have also agreed, and that other person was Sarah Gamble.
I
So
mean,
I will
this
be
is fantastic.
I will be interviewing her next. And the other interview will be I'm gonna say it to Carolyn and then bleep it out, and we're just gonna capture her
Yeah.
reaction. The next person I will be interviewing in the very near future is
Oh my God. Oh, that's fantastic. Like, can I send you questions? That's amazing.
yes, yeah,
Yeah. Well
yeah,
done. You got
definitely,
great taste there. Yeah. That's
De
exciting.
definitely, yeah, yeah. I Each year has gotten better for me, and you were part of my one of my first years of serious growth when you gave me a advanced copy of Free Only You,
Yep.
and now look at where we are, like 3 years
Yes.
later. It's only a matter of time until I have my own uh in-person interview studio, and I'm having you
Yep.
sitting right in front of me, and who knows? One day I will get a behind the scenes tour of the You First on Netflix, and we'll be interviewing you as like a consulting producer on the show. Who knows? Like, but
Yep.
I see a
I
lot of
like that.
growth,
Say it
and
out loud. Yeah, I believe in saying things out loud like that too. Yep. So yeah, you're making it like putting it out in the world and you're doing the work. So yeah,
right.
I believe
So
in
once again, thank you, and that is the Caroline Kepnes interview. Until next time, goodbye.
you. Goodbye.